Hi there, Simon from simonwoods.com here. I've got 5 wines today. I've got 3 of one sort and 2 of another sort, and the only thing that links them together is that they both begin with P. I've got Prosecco and I've got Port. 3 Proseccos from the Riccardo winery, and if you want to, if wine can be confusing, Prosecco can also be confusing, because what happens is there's Brut. What does Brut mean? Brut means dry. Well, there's also a different class called dry. Brut is the driest, and dry is the sweetest, and in between the two comes extra dry. Confused? Let's just dig in and see if we can explain. So this is Prosecco, Riccardo Prosecco, Treviso Brut. So Brut tend to be, if you're into your numbers, I think it goes up to about 15 grams of sugar, 0 to 15 grams of residual sugar. No particular vineyard, just says Treviso here. Stick my nose in and it smells gentle and fresh. It smells like it's going to be quite perky wine. It's going to be quite an aperitif style. Sometimes Prosecco used to be traditionally drunk at the end of a meal at cake time, and yes, the traditional style used to be on the sweeter edge. Now there are more and more dry styles like this, I think. Well, it's got that gentle honey and apple that I think of as being classic Prosecco, but it's got this clean finish. Really nice, almost minerally edge to it. There's this juicy, slightly floral, ever so slightly nutty edge. Nice wine. And apple, you know when you get those chefs who insist on putting froth with things? Apple froth, that's what I get with that. Almost like an apple foam. Very interesting, intriguing flavour. Okay, we're going up to extra brut now. Sorry, extra dry. This is the Prosecco di Valdobbiadene, which is the considered the better bit than basic Prosecco. So around the region of Prosecco, and then we've got a single vineyard within that region coming up next. But let's give this one a whirl first. And this one smells richer, fresher, rounder. Yeah, it smells like there's going to be more wine in the glass. It smells like it's going to be that touch sweeter too. There's almost like a richness and roundness to the fruit, and whereas the first one was fresh green apples, here there's a bit more cooked apple character. There's some yeasty edges there. There's this soft, rounded, creamy, again that apple foam character. Juicy, bit of honey, and yes, I actually prefer that made as a dry wine because it's got the finish I'm left with is just that little bit too sweet, but that's my personal style. I know lots of people who would hoover that up with gusto. Let's move on. So I think I think the regulations there are something like 15 to 25 grams of sugar. Maybe they overlap, maybe there's like 12 to 20, no that's it, I think it's 12 to 20, and the next one up is something like 15 to 25, I can't remember them all. Statistics say, so this is the Cartizze, which is the single vineyard, the Grand Cru of the Valdobbiadene region, and so yeah, dry. Let's give it a whirl. And it's a really steep slope where the Cartizze vineyards are. Yes, it's the best exposure. The grapes get the ripest there, and if you pick them late, then you're left with these really very ripe grapes that good for making a fuller, richer, fleshier style. And it smells like it's a bit more backward than the one before. It feels like it's a wine that almost needs, I mean, sometimes I do see people decant sparkling wines, and you can see why for a wine like this. It feels like it almost needs time to come out of its shell. And there's much more soil character there. There's much more of an earthy, I don't think there's a volcanic bit there, but yeah, there's like this minerally edge coming through, and yes, it is a sweeter style, but because it's richer and because it's got more of this backbone, it feels like it's got more acidity too. It feels in better balance than the previous one. You're getting the concentration, you're getting structure, and you're getting this mineral edge too. That's really tasty wine. Yeah, I used to be a bit of a Prosecco as well, I still think it's true. For me, Prosecco is the Pinot Grigio of the sparkling world. There is a lot of dross around, but when you come across good examples like that last one, well, Actually, all of them are pretty good. Then you see that's what Prosecco is all about. But it's the same with Pinot Grigio. There's some terrific Pinot Grigios, and there's an ocean of dross. Right, moving from one P to the other P. We're on port. Niepoort LBV 2005, bottled in 2009, or engarrafado, according to the Portuguese. I might give my glass a quick rinse. Niepoort is one of the most dynamic port houses, and for port, probably a bit more dynamic for table wines than for port, but their port is pretty good too. Or is it? Let's try this one. I like these little bottles, little stubby things. See, the thing about LBV is you're supposed LBV means late bottled vintage. It's a wine that is bottled between 4 and 6 years from the vintage. So the idea is it's done a bit more softening in the barrel than a regular vintage port, which I think has to be bottled between 2 and 3 years. Extra time in barrel softens it, makes it more gentle, more forward, but it's still a wine. So a bottle like that, you can open it, and providing you get through it in a week, it's going to be fine. After that, it's going to start deteriorating a bit. So a half bottle, even if there's just one of you, a little nip each night, perfect. And stick my nose in, and I get this lovely floral, violet scented, rich, rounded, roasted berries, and this heady, earthy edge. And if you've ever been in a winery when it's vintage time and the red grapes have just been crushed and there's this lovely smell of grape must in the air, that's a really pure, fruity winery must smell. Whoa! I mean, that's it's serious wine. That it's got power. It's got the sweetness, but it's got this almost like tomato-like savouriness. Rich volume of blackberry and blackcurrant fruit, but with this fragrance behind, and ever so slightly earthy leather and tar edges too. It's very tasty. Final one, Noval Black. I think the idea of this is to do a wine that is basically upmarket ruby port. So it will be a blend of different vintages. There'll be some old stuff in to give it a bit of character. There'll be some younger stuff in to give it a bit more bite and body and freshness of fruit. Let's see what it's like. And it's much more perky and fruity than the Noval. The Noval, it showed that little bit of relaxation that the extra age in barrel would give it. Here you're getting much more bouncy, Tigger-like blueberry, blackberry, plump, plummy flesh. And it's maybe not as complex, but I love that concentration. I love that really bouncy, juicy fruit. I'm thinking about having that with some chocolate cake, or it's weird. If you're ever up to it and you're not doing anything the next day, try drinking port, something like that. Particularly with young, fruity, juicy, vibrant, fruity port with peppered steak, and then having chocolate cake afterwards. Probably won't do your arteries any good, yes, as I say, I wouldn't go to work too early the next day. But it's a style of wine that, because it's got tannins, because it's got acidity, it goes quite well with a load of savoury food, not just cheeses, but yeah, pepper steak. Well, I like that. Yeah, can't complain about that one at all. So I don't know, which should I have a glass of for lunch? Prosecco or port? Maybe I'll have a little one of each. See you soon.